Hello, Jamie. It's been a long time.
It has. I think we're giving the people what they want.
We're giving the people. How was the summer social this weekend that you ran?
Amazing. Every year, 100 teams of 4. So we had 98 teams actually turn up, which is crazy. Every year we're scared that it's going to rain. Full outdoor event. And the one thing I never do, and always panic, I never write wet weather contingency workouts. Because I think if I do write them, it will rain. I don't write them, and it hasn't rained yet. So next year it's going to piss it down. And but yeah, overall good. Gutted to have missed Saturday and Sunday of Sid. Managed to get there on a Friday. How was it for you being down in London?
Yeah, it was really good. Very exciting. Good to be on home turf with a good amount of UK athletes as well. It's probably the most excited I've been watching CrossFit for a while. Not ashamed to say that, but it was a lot more exciting than, watching the other regionals when you don't know the guys, as much who were out there. So yeah, it wasn't as busy as I was anticipating though. I thought there would have been more people there, but I guess, I don't know. Everyone was at your summer social, all 400 people.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. They're all coming to watch us, me on the microphone. Not at all.
Awesome. So next week we have a deload on the program.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna go through the week. We're gonna try and keep it a little bit more condensed than we have done in the past, because we realise we end up talking quite a lot. But we'll just kind of touch on a few key points for each day that we feel are important to get across. So Monday's workout, a chunky tic-tac-esque looking workout, I must say.
Yeah.
For the workout, as a coach, what are you getting to your members?
Certainly, things that stand out to me are the weight that you need to be choosing. Okay, 21 clean and jerk at 60. Oh, I can do Grace. I normally do Grace RX. I'm going to give it a go today. Is it the right option? Let's look at the whole context of this workout. There's a huge volume of reps, and there's a lot of interference, which is direct interference. Hip extension on the clean, hip extension on the jerk, hip extension on the box jump, opening up your hips when you're jumping onto the plate. It's all there to negatively affect your clean and jerk. So just making sure that you're having the conversation with the members, be sensible with it, be light enough that you can go through. I put in the notes here, quick singles would probably be the smart play. Even if you can do touch and go sets, I would say you'd need to be super, super good with the barbell to be warranting trying to do touch and go sets. I think everyone knows how quick 21 box jumps can be, but also how slow they can be.
Yeah.
And same thing with burpees to a plate. They can be really fast. They can also be really slow. Clean and jerk reps on singles are not too dissimilar. You'll take an extra second, maybe a step back, that kind of stuff. So yeah, all based around the weight choice, and then making sure that you're steady on the barbell. So then you can really go to work on the interference work.
One more question on this workout. With regards to guidance for members, what would you say to them to help them figure out what weight they should be going at? Because it's pretty much double Grace, isn't it? The amount of reps that people are doing there.
Yeah, I think a good test would be, I think I put it in the notes as well, is to try and have an idea that you could do 5+ unbroken reps with the barbell. So if you're thinking, right, I'm going to do 6 or I'm going to do 42, could you do 5 to 10 unbroken reps on that barbell? Not necessarily what you're going to do in the workout, but it will give you a rough guide. Bit like when you're talking about Fran, it's like you realistically need to be going unbroken on it. There's no exceptions to that. Same thing here. It just gives you a good rough guide on where you should be for that.
Awesome. On to Tuesday. Super low skill. Got a 400 meter run into max kettlebell swings in 2.5 minutes, 8 rounds. It's a lot of rounds, a lot of swings. It's going to be one of those where you want to kind of keep the same amount of reps all the way through? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, 100%. That it's this is a workout that back in 2017 to 2019, through that little phase, obviously we know Cameron Nicol, who did lots of rowing. We had a little competitors group who were trying to tag along with Ben's training, and this was one of the conditioning sessions that we looked at doing near enough every week. And each week we would look at reducing the amount of rest time. And then once we got that rest time down, we'd go back up and increase the rounds, etc., etc. So it's one of those ones that sticks in my mind, and when I see it written down, it fills me with a little bit of anxiety, because it was like one of those sessions you do in a group, and it was, no one wants to run hard, but when you do it in a group, you run pretty hard. And then once you pick the kettlebell up, you're normally facing the clock. It's just about watching the clock tick down and just trying to breathe and maintain it. We haven't used what I would consider a modern day heavy kettlebell. With the 24 and the 16 are not considered heavy. They are something that we want to be smooth, long swing, making sure we've got a good hinge pattern. And then, you're bang on. The goal is to try and maintain the same amount of swings, which means we have to maintain our run pace throughout
as well. Again, to touch on one little thing you just said there, is this is a great opportunity to coach how to hinge properly, and something that can easily be overlooked. So doing that class, I would be spending some time going through a proper hinging pattern. And the other part is to make sure people are really warm for it. So we always put the Hinshaw run warm up in. Going through that good warm up first will set people up for a really hard but good Tuesday session there. On to Wednesday. Plenty of weightlifting work here. We've got 5 reps every 1.5 minutes. What are you looking for when people are doing this weightlifting work?
Consistency. Where the loadings at 65%, people will firstly look at a percentage and go, oh, that's not heavy. And then all of a sudden, these are squat snatches. You do your 5, probably takes you 30 to 40 seconds with quick drop and go singles. Then all of a sudden the heart rate picks up. You do your second set, you're like, okay, we're all right. And then we get to 3 and 4, and then we start kind of wishing ourselves to the end. So this is kind of born off of, if we look at like 7x5, we think of all of those 10x3s, the whole Smolov kind of strength-based focus. This is CrossFit's way of kind of getting into this higher volume. If you looked in the traditional weightlifting textbooks, you wouldn't see 7 sets of 5.
Yeah.
You might see 5 sets of 3, 3 sets of 5 at the very most. But 7 sets of 5 kind of is one of those ones where, say we have the workout Amanda, and it's ring muscle ups and squat snatches. If you're not doing those snatches touch and go, this is probably the percentage that you're going to be doing drop and go singles at. Yeah. So it's good training for that. It's in isolation. So there's no external interference in there. Also, there's a certain Rich Fronin who likes to do these kind of formats in these kind of time frames, and he seems pretty decent. So we'll got to steal from the best.
To help with that consistency, I would be making sure that the burpee rule is well and truly in play. Are there any other tips or strategies you use to help really kind of get the consistency message across?
Yeah, I think one of the conversations I was having it today, actually, when I was coaching a barbell club, is your dress rehearsal to the bar. So what I mean by that is your routine before you put your hands on the bar. Every 90 seconds, do you have someone that's talking to their friend, which is completely fine within a class format, may I add, but then the clock beeps and then they're reminded it's time for them to do their snatches. So then they rush over to their barbell, their hands quite not in place, the bar's a little bit away from them. Do you have a bit of routine? One routine that I've just naturally adopted is 15 seconds before the clock's going to beep, stand up, I'm stood behind my bar, and then I'm ready to approach it. So then the clock's just ticking down. The reason 15 seconds, 13 is an unlucky number. And naturally I noticed, I was like, I want to try and avoid that. And 10 seconds was too short for me to like get my head in the game. So that's what works for me. Some people are a little bit different. I know Ben, who used to be on the plan with you guys, Mr. Rad, he could just walk up to something and lift it. And it actually worked better when he just walked up to a bar and lifted it. Whereas some people need a little bit more time. If you watch Steve, when he lifts, it's very methodical. He's in his position. He's pulling the bar. He's trying to build tension in his body. And he's a little bit slower of a setup. So they both work. But I'd certainly say just be prepared before the beep. So then when you're ready to go, you're ready to go.
Awesome. On to Thursday, we've got a bit of a skill element to start. Yeah. So we've got 3 options: handstand walks, wall walks, or bear crawls. And we've been progressing this throughout the phase. There's been plenty of handstand work sprinkled throughout. When you're running this session and going through the different options, obviously some people may have like a couple of steps of doing handstand walk where you give time for people to, you know, try handstand walking before you go into this test, or what would you, I don't know, what would you be kind of going through when you're doing this handstand walk piece?
Yeah, you're spot on, Jack. If we look at the timings for the class, after our general warm-up, which is very gymnastics based. So what I mean by that is we've already covered the bear crawl 25 foot work in the warm-up. Yeah. And we've given ourselves then 10 minutes worth of skill development on the handstand or the wall walk or the bear crawl or a mixture of the two. In that 10 minutes, it's an opportunity to expose people to maybe the scale above where they go. It's also another opportunity to maybe get someone something they've never done before. So I know with a handstand walk, it's definitely a fear-based thing. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are a bit like, I'm not going to try it because I'm scared of falling. So then in an AMRAP, they're probably even more intimidated by it. So just when it's in a closed environment, it's a little bit nicer. Sometimes, if I throw a spanner in the works here, you have a class that everybody's new or everyone's inexperienced, and the 3-minute AMRAP becomes irrelevant. Yeah, it's actually, we take the 10 minutes of skill development plus that 3 minutes, and we turn it into basically 15 minutes worth of practicing skills, going upside down, and then just trying lots of different options. I certainly look at the wall walk or the bear crawl being the more taxing on the body if you're not that good at handstand walk, because wall walks, they get tough pretty quick, and bear crawls, they're quite hard to fail. You can just keep going and keep going and keep going. Whereas handstand walk, most people know when they come down, they have to wait a certain amount of time before they kick back up.
Yeah, good. I'm gonna go on to Friday now. So we're going to use this as a bit of a test for the next phase, aren't we? This kind of format. It's a chief style workout, which most people will probably be familiar with. But to just remind you what a chief style workout is, it's 3 minutes on, 1 minute off. And when you pick up on the next round, you pick up usually where you left off. We are testing here, or what we'll be developing through the next phase, and we'll go into this in more detail next week, is something we've coined heart per trophy. So we'll go into a bit more detail next week, like I said, but do you want to touch on the specifics of the workout for this week, Jamie?
Yeah, so we're going to alternate these AMRAPs, and like Jack said, we'll pick them up from where we left off, and we want to really encourage as many of the members to do this workout. It won't take much encouraging, because when you see that as a member, you're like, that's CrossFit. Like, there's everything I've got in now. I've got a bit of weightlifting with the dumbbells, or maybe the only thing that they're not a fan of is maybe the wall ball. Most people get on with burpees now. I've got some pull-ups in there. It's kind of got like the CrossFit toy chest. So selling it's not going to be a difficult option, difficult task. But it's a matter of just trying to set a benchmark on this, like we said. And then going forward, the style of training will include at least one session per week, which follows a similar kind of format in terms of time frame, but the movements will be quite varied. And if we delve into the actual workout that we've written here, we've got dumbbell snatch, box jump over, and pull-ups. So we've got hip extension, hip extension, hip extension. Again, we've got lots of things here that are kind of negatively impact the pull-up. So it might expose some weaknesses there. For me, if I'm looking at this using my kind of ability level, I'm going to be fine through the dumbbell snatch, probably going to be fine on the pull-ups, but I'm going to start to break down maybe on the box jump over. So I'm going to be acutely aware of trying to manage my pace on the things just before the box jump over. So that's the conversation you want to have with your members. Predominantly, a member is going to struggle with the pull-ups. So that we're having a conversation with them. They're thinking, I'm going to do the box jump overs fast so I can have a break before I do the pull-ups. Actually, why don't we slow the box jump overs down so then we can step off that last box jump over and then go straight into our pull-ups. Because then in time, we build capacity of pull-ups. The box jump speed's never going to slow down. We can just only ever speed it up. Whereas the other way around doesn't necessarily work. The alternating AMRAP, the other one, is a capacity test. We're looking at that thinking, well, we can get through the calories, the burpees. A good friend of mine called Simon, who we know quite well, he always used to say when he was coaching, you can't fail a burpee. And he's pretty accurate on that. Like, I've seen some close near failing of a burpee, but you can just get down, get back up. And wall balls, that 10 has got to be an enticing number to be unbroken. Like, who doesn't do 10 unbroken wall balls now, unless you're like really hanging on. So the interesting one to see. I'm kind of looking forward to doing it, but I'm kind of not. I know 3 minutes on, 1 minute off is it's a horrible time frame to be stuck into.
That was always my line that Simon used as well. You can always get up from a burpee. That was my line. But yeah, a good test. And it's one of them where none of the movements will interfere too much with the other. I know you said about the hip extension, but it's not so much that, oh, like my hips have completely, blown out and, you kind of struggle. It's a case where, oh, right, using muscles here, then you're using muscles down there, and then back to using muscles up here. So it'll be really challenging for, the body to get blood from one area of the body to the other. And like I say, we'll go into a little bit more detail next week on that though. Cool. We've got another test on Saturday. And again, we will be retesting this in the next deload, same for yesterday's test on the Friday. Got a 5-minute AMRAP of toes to bar. Now, I know some coaches and some people are going to look at this and think, members doing a 5-minute AMRAP of toes to bar? What? Don't worry, guys. We're going to use this going forward, and it's always a great benchmark to have, to be like, oh, how many reps can I do, mid-workout? This is the perfect, benchmark for that. I guess scales is probably a good talking point, because if you're someone that can do toes to bar, like maybe 5 reps unbroken, you potentially could soon be going to singles if you don't pace this right. So let's maybe touch on pacing and scaling.
Yes, so pacing is really interesting conversation. We had this conversation a long time ago. I can't remember exactly when, but I know you and Steve got big score on toes to bar, 120. Mm-hmm. So it works out 6 every 15 seconds. Is that right?
Yeah. And
that's what you used as a format. You were like going to do 6. Was that your biggest set, 6?
Yeah. Maybe? Yeah. We either did 6 every 15 or 8 every 20. It was one of the two. Yeah. So
there's case in point on how big a set do you need to do to get an elite level score. You don't if you minimize the amount of rest and you are able to hold a good consistent pace. So that's a conversation to have with your members. Some people are a little bit different. They may want to go out with maybe a double the number of what you're thinking that you're going to hold. So say, for instance, for me, I could get away with a freebie set. So say I'm going to try and hold 5 every 20 seconds, which is something that possibly be able to do. So 15 a minute is something that I'd want to try and target as a minimum. But I may start off with a set of 10. And then I'll jump into 5s from there. And those extra 5 reps won't necessarily negatively affect me, but it will just get me ahead of my run rate. And then it will just allow me to stay in that race. And then if I do start to slow down and I'll break down naturally with 90 seconds to go, I've got the ability to drop down to a 3 or then maybe a 2 right at the very end. But I've got those reps banked up. But what we're trying to say here is don't go crazy. It's something that we're aiming to try and make sure we get through good 3/4 of this before we start having to break down on our movements.
Another good story for this. So at the weekend in the chipper, there was 75 toaster bar in the workout. Andre was in the lead going on to the toaster bar, but pretty close with someone else in his heat. He counted his reps on the toaster bar from the start. He was doing kind of 8 and 7s to start off with, and then dropped down to 6s, was keeping the rest short, similar to how me and Steve did in the 5-minute test when we got 120. Came off the toaster bar. The other people started off with bigger sets, and he gained, I think it was like an extra 15 to 20 seconds from everyone else. So again, it just goes to show that, you know, the king of pacing does win. I feel like as well, it would maybe be good to touch on the workout with the ring dips in. Very rarely do we see a workout with ring dips, never mind a med ball ring dip.
Yeah. So this is taken from the athlete plan, near enough as written. 200-meter run, 30 wall balls. So we've got a kind of a bit of a heart rate opener. Then we've got lots of shoulder interference. Then we're straight into ring dips. The first set of ring dips are regular. You can kip them. Second set of ring dips are strict. And then those med ball ring dips are strict as well. We're holding the med ball between our knees, squeezing the life out of it. With the ring dip, in terms of scaling options, so when we coach this, set the rings initially for your whole class. So the bottom of the ring is at the top of your kneecap. So then we can introduce the seated ring dip as our entry point. Also a warm-up exercise for all of the members that are doing the RX variation. So the rings are nice and low. Reason I like to do this is lots of gyms will just set their rings up at chest level from the start, and then there's no ability for your members that don't have the ability to jump and hold their front support. So just trying to think of that inclusive nature of getting everybody in, having those rings low, and then raising them up to people's ability level. If people were struggling to still stabilize with their feet on the floor, you can revert them to like a box dip or a bench dip. But again, it gets most people in that conversation. And if they are on a scaled option, you probably look at reducing the volume and keeping them at strict throughout. They're not going to be kipping. They're not going to be adding a med ball to it. We're looking at the same level of difficulty across all of it. So when you are approaching that class, they're going to be more scared of the wall balls and the 90 wall balls that they're going to have to encounter. So turn their attention to keeping a nice steady ring dip skill, but then really pushing on the wall balls.
Awesome. Some great advice that. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Kipping ring dips. Do you have a strategy how you coach them? And I'm not saying tell us it now, but it would be a good video. And if you have a brief explanation, that would be good.
A real quick way of thinking about it. A lot of people kick down. So they get to the bottom of the ring dip and they kick towards the ground. The best way I learned how to do this is if you've ever watched Jackass back in the day, when Wee Man kicks himself in the face, I always say to the guys, we get to the bottom of the ring dip with your legs straight, and then we try to knee ourselves in the chest. So as you knee yourself in the chest, that momentum coming up from the knee and the hip creates that weightlessness, and that's when you squeeze out your triceps. So I always think about it, and I always have a little laugh and a smile to myself. And it is going to become a redundant joke soon because people won't have watched Jackass and Wee Man. But yeah, that's my way of teaching ring dips. And it's a good way to kind of get people started nice and slow, low down to the bottom.
Great stuff. Thank you. And then to wrap the week up on Sunday, a 30-minute AMRAP There's plenty of core work in there.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit of handstand work in there as well, and followed up with some machines. What are you getting to members in this piece? Good to get some core work in for sure. There's been a little bit of accessory work early in the week, but I know we've not hit some of that for a couple of days, so good to get the core work in. Is there anything else that you want to emphasize when you are delivering this workout?
I'm spending a good amount of time on a Turkish get up. Again, we've had some toes to bar the previous stand, some hanging. The machine's quite easy. We can get ourselves in and we can coach kind of while we're on it. But the Turkish get up's one of those movements that comes in. And if it's not coached, members don't like it. It feels awkward. They're not coordinating themselves. But if you have a solid setup of going through those positions of shoulder roll in, get into that lunge position, strong setup and push, it can be quite an enjoyable exercise. And you can set challenges. We've done a similar workout before, and it's only 3 and 3. So it's one of those ones that each round we can look at increasing the weight of our Turkish get up if we want to just make it a little bit more challenging each time.
Yeah, perfect. Bang, that wraps the week up.
Awesome.
Like I say, next week we'll be going through the ins and outs a little bit more of the next phase. But again, remember, we've got 2 tests in this deload week. The next phase is 5 weeks long, and in that 5th week, we'll be looking to retest those 2 sort of workouts. So the 5-minute AMRAP toes to bar, whether we repeat the exact same workout, we'll let you know next week. Okay. But yeah, so that gives you a rough idea of the plan going forward there. But yeah, let's leave it there. We'll catch you next week, guys.
Awesome.